We're live. We'll call the meeting to order then. And the approval of the addendum order of business, and it's not really any changes that I have any. Don't vote anybody else.
And I know it's a big agenda, there's just a couple of questions related to fire department. It'll be short and sweet.
Fire departments?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Somebody want to approve it as amended?
I will.
Second. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Public input. Jennifer says there isn't anybody. There is, isn't there?
Yes, we'd like to welcome, just as part of public input, representatives from the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Partnership, the chair, David Murdoch, and the coordinator, Lisa Bennett.
Yeah. And rather than give a formal presentation, they
Yes.
just want to say a little bit about what's going on.
And put a face to the name, of course, as you know, of the new coordinator.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to come, would you like to come up and join us? Or?
Sure. You want me to sit or?
You can sit, stand, whatever makes you happy.
Perfect. Just come on up, David.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
You and them before.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce Lisa, who's our new coordinator, took over from Chris. And Lisa started in October. And thought it was about time that she showed her face here and said, this is what we're doing. And also, I wanted to thank council for their support financially. And of course, the community that supports us, along with the other councils and the province and United Way. So over to Lisa.
It takes a lot of people to do the right thing.
It certainly does. It's a big collaboration and it wouldn't be successful without it. So what we're up to, so we've continuing with the Vial of Life program. We have a lot of pharmacies in the communities that are donating vials. There's a lady at, excuse me, at the Chester detachment that helps fill the vials and then we pass them out. Been at the our health center for presentations, did a pop-up there, which was a huge success. We were able to connect people, not just locally with resources in the community, but they had family members in other regions, so able to connect them to other senior safety coordinators in those regions, which was great. And very exciting to be able to secure a date for the Senior Safety Academy at the Our Health Center in the fall from October 12th to November 6th. And that's addressing issues of concern for seniors. So we'll have experts in their fields on fall prevention, legal issues, fraud prevention. So we're gearing up for that and we're really excited about that. Continuing with the home visits and the preventative pieces for, if you do prevention work up front, then down the road, you're not hopefully working so hard in, you know, managing urgent and crisis situations. So trying to keep an eye on doing that moving forward. So, any questions?
I don't.
We received the monthly report, which of course, I'm sometimes on schedule, sometimes I'm 2 weeks behind because it's at every council, we meet every 2 weeks as council, I guess.
Right.
So in this particular package, meeting package, because it is a council meeting, this council will receive the April and May monthly reports. Should just be one, but I'm again a little behind. So April and May, so the numbers are always provided, and it's very impactful. I don't believe there's ever any questions because really, seriously, because just, I think we're all familiar in terms of our own areas, the difference that you've made, the program has made. So yeah, which is
We're
enough.
just thankful for
Yeah.
their doing.
I'd like to add one thing. I became involved with this because Tina heard that I might be interested in senior safety, and I started going to the board meetings, and that was quite a while ago. Our board is always needing to be refreshed. And so that's what happened when Tina contacted me. So if any of you know of people who might suit or are interested in senior safety, then please ask them to get in touch with me. We're always looking to refresh our board. Yeah.
Okay, we will do so. Okay, thank you, it's good to see you.
Thank you for the
Enjoy the
opportunity
rest
to
of
talk.
the day.
Thank you.
When the sun comes out, I'm ready for it now.
Good to see you all again.
Thank you so much.
Okay, minutes of the previous meeting, council May the 28th. There was a omission. May 18th is what I have on my
A motion to approve.
second.
Wasn't there.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. There are no proclamations that I'm aware of. Committee of the whole recommendations. That is, what is it, just one, the bylaw race inspection. I'm gonna find it. Several. Multiple. There's the rest of them. Okay. Well, is there anything anybody wants separated there from the block or?
Yes, I do, please. The first and the last, so motions 271 and 275, 2023, of course.
In 275?
Correct.
Okay. Is somebody prepared to move the remainder of them?
I will move the remainder of the motions.
Second. Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion is carried. 271, somebody prepared to move that?
I'll move.
Second.
Second. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. 275, somebody prepared to move that?
So move. Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Okay, 6.2, 6.3, Tina, you have anything you want to add to that?
Reports complete. No, no.
Well,
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a perfect opportunity to have David and Lisa.
okay.
I'll make one comment. I'm not a person there are many aspects of this job, and it's well known that I'm not very good at the soft side of it. I like numbers and the technical part. But recently I had the opportunity I actually had to refer somebody to the senior safety program. And I think that saved that person's life.
Well, that's important. Absolutely. Thank you for that comment. Public presentations, I'm not aware of. 9.1, up come the planners.
Tired this morning.
Settle in.
I got a full coffee somewhere.
Yes, you don't want to sit around for this one. You're gone.
All right, well, good morning, council. So what we have today is a request for a land use bylaw amendment, a rezoning. And the request is to consider the properties within the district of Chester that border Solar Lake to have the application of the lakeside zone, which is our relatively newly created zone that we created back in 2022 and applied to Sherbrooke Lake after going through the similar rezoning process. So Just quickly as a bit of background, so the application here was submitted on behalf of Jeffrey and Andrew Birchhill, who are owners of one of the potentially impacted properties. And again, the request is to create a, I'll say a band or a buffer of lakeside zone that would follow the lake shore. And that would replace the current mixed use zoning that is in place for covering all the property. So there would be a band of the lakeside zone if this goes ahead, and then the mixed use would continue from there back.
Which property is he on?
So the applicant owns the piece, it's the one in the bottom right, that's right on the boundary line with HRM. So it's that small,
Fine.
yes, that's the one right there.
Over there.
Yeah, so it's actually split with HRM, his property. So a portion of it sits in HRM and a portion of it is in Chester. So just again, as a bit of background, back in November of 2022, council authorized a rezoning for one of the potentially affected parcels here, that being the largest sort of L-shaped parcel. And that was the request there was a rezoning request to remove some settlement residential 2 zone and make the whole lot mixed use zone. And that was in support of a proposed commercial development. So that's just a bit of context for the same region that we're looking at here. So as I mentioned, this is the second request that we've had to implement the lakeside zone. The first was the Sherbrooke Lake groups that we worked with to create the zone. So this is the second time. And coincidentally, it's also on a lake that is split zone with another, or not split zone, excuse me, that is split between our municipality and another municipality. Just coincidence. I'm sure one day we'll get one that we control all the property around it. And as a bit of a reminder, the lakeside zone is sort of, I say it's 2-pronged. It's intended the first primary focus is to protect water quality, but the second purpose, which is noted in the policy, is to support what we kind of refer to as cottage country, or that low density residential living environment. And so some of the standards in there serve both purposes in terms of larger lot sizes. Well, that keeps the density lower, but it also helps environmental protection. So it is a 2-pronged zone, and I think both of those are important to think about as we go through this process. Part of the consideration in considering an application for rezoning is what are the existing and surrounding land uses in the area. So currently all of the lots are undeveloped that would be potentially impacted here. But as mentioned, there was the one large lot that was rezoned and we understand will be developed for commercial use.
Yes.
With the exception of that site, we are not aware of any proposed developments for any of the other lots. So that's just a bit of information. We haven't heard from anybody saying they have plans. And in terms of the larger lot that is proposed for commercial use, there's a few photos in here. So I went up and did a site visit, and that no development or building has begun there, but they are clearing the site and doing sort of initial prep work from the looks of things. Then the other, I think, important feature in terms of existing surrounding land uses is the proximity to Highway 103. And as we all know, Highway 103 is being twinned in the area. And in addition to that, there is a new private road, or I guess maybe it'll be a J class, I'm not sure, a new road being created by the province to access some cottage properties further north on Solar Lake into HRM, and that will be accessed from exit 6, and it'll run parallel to the highway. And so when we look at those, I think, 2 factors together, I think that is definitely worthy of consideration when we're talking about environmental protection of the lake. So the highway development is not subject to our municipal land use controls or authority or zoning. They are subject to provincial environmental regulations, and that's administered through Nova Scotia Environment. So it's not to say that it's totally a free for all, but that's just to say that anything that we put in will not necessarily. Right. That's essentially that's it. So I think it is. I think it's fair to assume that there will be a continuing a continuing situation where sediment and salt and other types of runoff from the road will make their way into Solar Lake. I mean, it's just, the process of twinning and creating the new Solar Lake Road has removed a strip of existing vegetation that used to be there. Those trees are now gone. You almost used to not be able to see the lake from that area. And Solar Lake Road itself is within about 15 to 20 meters, and it looks like there's been some infill of the lake, and there's quite a significant slope. So I think it's fair to say that there will be impacts on the lake from the highway work, and that is really out of our control. So aside from sort of the existing and surrounding land uses, another important piece when we're looking at the lakeside zone is at what depth it should be applied, or what, if we're talking about this band around the lake, how far should that band extend? And if you'll remember back to Sherbrooke Lake, we looked at a few different numbers. It was a different context there. And in that case, we settled on 300 meters back from the lake. I'll jump into it in a moment here, but you'll see we're looking at, because of the size of the properties and the context, we're looking at sort of different numbers in that sense. And another point, I guess, just to finalize, is Solar Lake itself. When we looked at Sherbrooke Lake, that was roughly a 50-50 split between the property. We had a significant number of properties in MOC, several hundred, I believe. In the case of Solar Lake, and this again doesn't necessarily mean that it's not worthy of consideration. It's just a point to raise. Under 10% of that lake is in the district of Chester. So the vast majority is in HRM, and only about 10 properties would be impacted by this, and all the properties in HRM would not be. So that's just again, a point of context. When we're considering what an appropriate depth would be, we look at all those things like existing land use, the existing lot patterns, subdivision patterns, and then also the topography is also important if we're thinking about preventing or slowing down runoff. Where the slopes are and where the ridge lines are can also be an important consideration. So in terms of Solar Lake, we haven't had a detailed watershed analysis done, but just from reviewing slope maps and those kind of things, it appears roughly that the main ridge line's about 100 meters. In some cases, it's a little further back than that, but 100 meters would pick up, I would say, the majority of the most steeply sloped places to go down. And then finally, there is also, as we're aware, the existing lakefront overlay protection that are in place. And so those are applied to, whereas the lakeside zone, we determined, or council determined, was appropriate to look at it on a lake by lake basis as a request comes in. The lakefront overlay as part of the municipal plan review applies to every lake. And just as a reminder, that has a 20-meter setback for main structures and limits on paving and hard surfaces within 20 meters of the lake. Whereas the lakeside zone goes several steps beyond that. It limits the land use to 1 or 2 unit dwellings per lot. It has larger minimum lot sizes, and that one of the most substantial pieces is it requires retention of the first 10 meters of vegetation at the lake shore as the vegetated buffer that we call it. So in trying to help the Municipal Planning Advisory Committee and then council kind of work through this, I presented a few ideas, I guess, for if we wanted to apply the lakeside zone. So the first would be to apply it at a depth of 20 meters. That would match the existing lakefront overlay, but it would add in those additional protections in terms of no commercial development and probably most significantly requiring the vegetated buffer at the lake shore. Next potential option would be to look at applying it at a depth of 30 meters. The reason I chose 30 meters is because that essentially would be as far back as you could go without including Highway 103. And again, including Highway 103 isn't going to affect how Highway 103 operates, but it could be seen as we have this strong environmental protection that includes a 100 series highway. I think that would potentially create a bit of a question what the purpose of zoning over the highway is. So 30 meters would kind of create a band that would roughly stop at the highway. The next one, the next kind of consideration would be to go to the 100-meter depth. And again, that would be based mostly on the slopes. And actually, yeah, if we can just scroll down just to see that image, just to give.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No problem. But yeah, that image there, so this is a combination, so it shows you the contour lines, which are the skinny lines there. And as those contour lines are closer together, that indicates a steeper slope. And then the color bands are done in 100-meter increments. So the darkest band shows if we implemented it at 100 meters, and that's what I say, it's not perfectly aligned to the ridge line, but it does, that would capture most of the steepest slopes. So that would be potentially the thinking if we wanted to look at the 100-meter. And then if we really wanted to go beyond 100 meters, I wasn't really suggesting that, but we would need to determine a case for that and then what that depth would be. But you can see as we go really beyond 100 meters, the impact, particularly on the proposed commercial development property, is going to be significant. To date, and we don't have detailed plans on exactly what the layout of that is. We haven't received a subdivision application yet or permit applications, but to date, there hasn't been much proposed within what I would call the toe piece that goes down to the lake. But as you can see, if we get into those orange shades, that's going to be
It would have more.
really, and again, remembering that the lakeside zone would be no commercial development at all, so that would really be shutting down that portion of the lot. And then the fifth sort of potential consideration here would be to maintain the existing protections, being the lakefront overlay, and not look at the lakeside zone. In terms of the policy review, we went through that, and happy to answer any questions there. This was an interesting one because there was nothing, I don't think there's anything inherently in the request that is against our policy, but we also have policies, the policies around when the lakeside zone should be applied. And I'm not sure that it really meets the threshold in some way. So that's the discussion and the decision for council here. So again, there's nothing to say we absolutely shouldn't, but I think there are some, there's some reasons to wonder, is this the
Absolutely sure.
right, and how impactful would this be on the overall health of the lake? There isn't an existing residential community there to protect in terms of those lots are primarily undeveloped. But again, there certainly is nothing in the policy that I'm aware of that would prevent the application. So
Is this the same one where we have the letter asking us to defer? Yeah.
yes, I think there was some correspondence, I believe. Yeah. So just quickly to wrap up, so we did do a public information meeting, as we always do. We had a 7 or 8 members of the public, fairly small. I would say there was sort of a mix, generally supportive of the rezoning, but mostly just asking questions. And then we also brought the file to the Municipal Planning Advisory Committee on May 17th, presented basically the same staff report and similar options. And so the MPAC committee recommended the 20-meter depth of the lakeside zone. That was their motion. And the staff recommendation on this one is to not proceed with the lakeside zone and just maintain the existing.
Yeah.
There is a letter in there to defer this decision, and I'm supportive of that. I think that we're gonna meet with staff, and there's maybe an opportunity there that could have influenced council decision at the end of the day. So I think I coordinate the motion to defer this decision until, I think there's a date on the letter, I'm not sure, until after staff has an opportunity.
We're making that motion. Do we have a second or a motion?
I'm second.
Yeah.
Question.
Question.
I got a question
Yeah, okay.
before you vote.
Yeah, no, we're good. Right now it's time.
The letter we did receive asked for a deferral / postponement of the first hearing.
Yeah, if we decide not to proceed, then there's no hearing anyway.
Yeah, that's why, so as staff are recommending you don't proceed.
Oh, well, the letter, I didn't receive, the report was written without the context of the letter, I'll say that. The letter just came in the last day or so. So my recommendation, was to not proceed with the lakeside zone. And then the letter came in asking to defer a decision.
Yeah,
So,
Tara has something.
I just have one clarification. In the report, option 2, if you were to choose not to proceed, I think it says we set a public hearing date.
right,
If you choose not to proceed, you don't need
No,
a
it's not
public,
one,
you don't need
okay,
a public
right.
hearing. So, it would just be a direction to staff to inform the applicant that the request was denied
Right.
and that
So
would be.
so is the person who's requesting that we defer in favor or against?
Person that's asking for referral, I think that the property owners that runs to the lake,
Mhm.
that they go in
So-
there.
I don't think the applicant has seen their deferral request.
Oh,
Because the applicant to the file isn't present. And the letter just came in, I think, yesterday or the day before, so I don't think they would have had.
But the deferral is only necessary
If we choose to, yes.
if you're.
Yeah.
I just like to say for the record that I sit on the MAPAC committee and I agreed with the staff and the motion that was put on the floor passed, of course. But I just wanted that on the record that I was in favor of the recommendation of staff
to defer, or not to even know.
To not do it.
to not do it. I just want that on the record. Now, whether we defer or not, that's another matter, but.
Whatever you guys decide, I'll vote the way I want it to be, whatever you guys.
Well, I mean, it's your part of the world. I don't mind deferring. It's just that based on what I know right now, I would just cancel. So I'd be voting not to move forward with that. But I don't mind deferring it if they want to come in and have something to say to us.
Another question.
My understanding is they want to meet with staff and maybe make an offer. My understanding is to give the lakefront property connected to them. Perhaps it's a 10% of land under the land use thing.
Yeah.
To staff for recreation purposes. So it would become property of municipality and they'd be able to use it for recreation purposes.
There's no harm in deferring it. It's just,
I just think it's an
they
opportunity.
may change some of it. Jerry?
I'm going to support the motion to defer. My inclination, if we were to vote at this point, based on staff recommendation, would be to follow staff recommendation. But we do have another proposal. Another option. I'd rather defer. And, to have a chance for us to review in your report. Are you suggesting we not proceed? Is it written in your report?
In the recommendation, in the options section, and then if you look at the policy analysis, you'll see.
So option 2 is the one that you're recommending.
Correct, to do nothing and maintain the existing protections.
Except you wouldn't set a public hearing.
Right, that's right, yeah.
So if we defer, there's no, I guess I don't see the harm in deferring it and pursuing the other option.
Yeah, and it's tough to say without either the applicant for the rezoning or the developer for the commercial use here, because I suspect the commercial use, the developer was asking for the deferral under the assumption that the rezoning was going to proceed,
Yes.
because not doing the rezoning
He would
it has
have
no
no
impact, and
reason.
he's free to continue, right? But I don't know that, so
And that's why the deferral will slow these guys down, I would think.
not necessarily. I don't think so. We have a meeting, an internal meeting to chat about the process, and then we're hoping to meet with the developer to talk about this idea. But I don't think the deferral would slow it down.
Okay.
Because currently there isn't anything on the books, and the developer could still apply for subdivision or development permits at any point that they wanted to, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? The motion is to defer. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We shall approve.
Thanks.
Great, yeah.
Okay, 9.2. Draft letter to Minister Elman regarding coastal protection act.
This is, yeah.
So last week at the committee of the whole meeting, you received a letter from the Ecology Action Center.
Yeah.
And they were asking you to
Support the letter.
support that letter and send a copy of it to Minister Hallman regarding the postponement of the Coastal Protection Act. So council asked for a draft of a letter that better reflected the discussion that you had, and so you have that in front of you. I won't read it.
That's long.
Yeah, so we're just looking for any suggestions or changes to this letter, and if there are none, then we will look for endorsement of the letter and direction to send it along.
Everybody happy with it? It's more our point of view. Somebody prepared to move that we send the letter.
So
Second discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. I guess we would copy it to the postal action.
We will.
They would know what we did.
Copy to the
Okay. 10.1, first one is from Municipal Affairs and Pageant to Brenda Chisholm Beaton, President of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, 12-month notice.
Yeah.
Well,
Almost done. What are they gonna do to us?
There's not a lot of detail on what they're planning to do right now. There's some notice on the Department of Justice Biological Casework Analysis Agreement. So they're looking at some changes to that may have a financial impact and cost to municipalities. There is the construction and demolition debris regulation guideline changes, which we've already had a report on and reviewed. The Coastal Protection Act is also listed in there as something that could have some potential impact, but financial impacts on municipalities. The extent of the impacts are not known yet.
they're just telling us to cover all the bases. They have to give us a notice in case it has an impact.
Yeah.
They didn't tell us anything.
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I read it, not trying to.
The one area you may want to have more information on is the procurement guidelines. So there's some changes to the procurement thresholds that might allow us to look at our procurement thresholds and
Make some
and,
changes to
make
that.
some changes. So we could look at that if you wanted us to.
Well, it doesn't hurt to look at it if you have any information that's
Yep.
relevant.
Okay.
Okay, receive for information. Okay. First one's from Laramax asking to postpone, well, we've pretty much done that. .1, request infrastructure and operations landfill mobile workshop and sand spreader.
Krista, answer.
Morning.
Morning.
Well, basically, we're here today to look for council's approval for an enclosed cargo trailer and a sand spreader. We presently have a 3/4 ton truck that we'll be getting this year for snow removal. And we would like to purchase that electric sand spreader, and I hadn't had it included in the budget, so my bad. So I'm
You got
requesting
enough
that.
money to do it? Or-
We will see.
Yeah, Tim has said we're okay with it. That we didn't approve it in the capital budget, but the funds for the purchase of the trailer and the sand spreader could come from the proceeds of accumulated scrap metal, recycled scrap metal.
Yeah,
Anybody have any issues? I'm gonna move, we approve it.
you approve both? You're gonna approve both? You want me to go forward further?
Well,
The cargo trail, you're good?
you can,
No, you
I'm
can.
good with both, but I don't know about anybody else. I'm not hearing anything. Somebody want to move, we approve those two items.
I'll move.
How about a seconder?
I'll second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Easiest one ever. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Just have- No, people say it wasn't a big hockey game or anything. otherwise.
She just wrote a student.
Well, well, I mean, the easy stuff was too, the hard stuff we got enough to talk about.
It's coming. It's not that-
Yeah, they're on it now. Now we're forgetting.
11.2.
Oh, 11.2, yeah. Merrimack's passing the, 11.2.
Emily.
Oh, Emily,
Hello.
land use bylaw amendments, a whole bunch of stuff.
I've got a nice long list to go through.
You do.
Yeah. So over the last couple of years, staff have identified a series of amendments that would improve the clarity and administration of both the municipal land use bylaw and the village land use bylaw. Staff consider this whole list minor in nature and they can be accomplished without amending the MPS, which is great. So I'm gonna skip the list and just go right in to the discussion and touch on each one of them and what the amendments are. So the first one is to section 2 in the definitions. The definition of tourism home, we'd like to add language to specify that the site will not function as a residential dwelling unit. And we'd also like to update the name of a tourism home, the definition to short-term rental, just to better reflect current terminology of rental units. And then we'd also like to add a line to the general provisions in section 4 to state that short-term rentals are subject to the dwelling standards of the zone that the structure is situated in, just to ensure that those rental units are subject to the same standards as single unit dwellings in that zone. Section 3.2, interpretation of zone boundaries. This will also be an amendment to the village land use bylaw in section 3.4. We're looking to add language to acknowledge that any maps shown in Schedule A and then Schedule A and A2 in the village can be revised from time to time to reflect improved data or more accurate information. This is just when property data is updated by the province, that they do this quite regularly, that it makes it easier for us to update them because discrepancies may come up in between property lines and zone boundaries. Section 4.1.3, the mobile vending section, as well as section 4.5 in the village land use bylaw. We're just looking to add a line that other bylaws are exempt from the land use bylaw provisions, including but not limited to the uniform signage and outdoor dining bylaw. In the village, it is the outdoor dining and the trades and licensing bylaw. This is just because staff introduced a variety of new bylaws throughout the years, and they all supersede the general provision. So we just want to make sure that there's no contrary provisions there. Section 4.18.1, private storage. As it's currently written, it has some general language for storage for private storage sheds. So we use language like subject to zone standards. We'd like to make it that private storage buildings shall be permitted in any zone subject to the zone standards for single unit dwellings, just so they have the same setbacks. Right now, it leaves a little room for difficulty to interpret and some room for error. So that will just mirror other zones and make it a little more fluid of the document. I've got 2 amendments for section 4.28.1, the lakefront overlay. So we're looking for language to be revised to state that any development on a lot subject to the lakefront overlay shall require a development permit. As it currently stands, if the landowner wanted to develop on the land that was subject to the lakefront overlay, which is a 20-meter thing, as Garth mentioned, but they don't propose to build in that area covered by the lakefront overlay, a development permit is not required right now. So in any cases, once the construction begins, the municipality is sort of limited to ensure that that area is being protected. So this change will just clarify that if they do want to develop on the land, even if it's outside of the lakefront overlay, they would still require a development permit. And then the second one is the section D refers to impermeable surfaces must not exceed 25% of the total area of the lot covered by buildings and hard surface landscapes. We'd like to change that the impermeable surfaces may not exceed 20% of the total lakefront area of the lot. So that just needs to be clarified, so that 25% limit is just intended to the area of the lakefront overlay and not the entire lot, because that would really limit some development potentially. Section 6.4.1, this is the SR2 permitted uses and developments. I've got a couple in this section. Campgrounds and RV parks are listed as any other commercial or institutional use, which are not subject to setback requirements. In other zones like the mixed use and general basic zones, they are permitted with setbacks. So the SR2 zone was intended to be a little more restrictive than those zones. So we're just looking to add those setbacks from 1.5 to 10 meters, which is equal to other zones like that. And then we're also looking to limit the number of campgrounds in the SR2 zones to 10 per site. This is again just to mirror some of the other setbacks and requirements in other zones. And then again, in the 6.4.1, the SR2 permitted uses, this is a couple different setbacks that we're just looking to mirror with the other zones. So 3 to 11 dwelling units on a lot are currently 1.5 meters. We're just looking to change that setback to 3. And then for the tourism accommodations, we're looking to change it from 7 to 7.5 just to match the mixed use zones. Okay, section 6.5.1, we're getting there. Through the mixed use zone and permitted uses and developments.
Stuff is complex.
It is. There's language stating that campgrounds and RV parks with more than 21 sites are permitted through development agreement, and then up to 20 by development permit. This is just a quick change from the more than 21 sites to 21 or more, because essentially right now we're not permitting a campground with exactly 21 sites on it. So if we just add that language, that can be exactly. And then section 9.4.3, this is the new lakeside zone. This was just a one-liner that we actually kind of just missed when we were developing it. So the waterfront parks not owned by the municipality, we'd like to add that as a permitted use through development agreement. Again, it's in all of the other zones. We just kind of missed that one when we were making that zone. So when I touched on both of the village land use bylaws, they're just the same as the other two. We had a public information meeting in October, not a soul showed up.
That's almost a good thing.
Sometimes. And then we also took a report and the list of amendments to the municipal and village planning advisory committees separately, so that the village didn't have to hear about all of the municipal ones and vice versa. Short discussions were had, but both committees made the motion that council give first reading of the housekeeping amendments and schedule a public hearing. And staff also will have that recommendation. So that's option 1.
Was council's think they should?
I just have a question.
Yeah. It was a lot.
I'm looking at the campground piece.
Yes.
I have a sort of a campground in my area.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly what it is. It looks like to be 10 or 15
Okay.
trailers there. It's really close to the ocean. I know that Blue Nose Coastal Action has been involved a little bit, and I've had some residents around the area. I'm sort of asking if are they allowed to do that there? So I don't know if this will affect them in any way. I have no idea if they have any kind of permits in place, or it's pretty sketchy.
Okay. It'll definitely depend on the zone and the setbacks and that kind of stuff, but we can,
It's in Martins Point.
okay, we can look into it.
It's down the road that you go to Oak Island.
Okay,
I think it's Grand Point Road.
okay.
We don't know what zone it's in.
I don't know off the top of my head, but
I think it's
we could chat.
it's not in the Hamlet zone.
Mhm.
If it's already there, then there is no impact. That's right, because existing uses don't matter.
No, well, that's, I guess, what I was getting at, unless, so if they're really close to the ocean, that's just the way it is, I guess.
How long has it been there?
If it was a permitted use in the first place.
It was permitted, I guess, I mean, I don't know the history of it, I've noticed it grew from like 2 to 5 to, it's, yeah, and they're basically right on the ocean. I had,
They have holding tanks.
well, Department of Environment was there, Councilor Reno knows, I mean, they're useless, but anyway, he has holding tanks there. It's really haphazard and I don't know, I know it's complaint driven
Mhm.
to deal with it, but I don't know what, like I say, it's grown over
Mhm.
time and I'm not sure. I assume he has holding tanks there. I mean, do they?
Yeah, the issues there are beyond.
It's Department of Environment, I understand, and they've been down there, but I just don't know if there's anything municipally that we can do,
Yeah.
look at. I'm just not sure.
Are they not compliant with the bylaw?
Well, this is what I'm saying, I don't know.
Well, I would find it.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, and we can check that, but,
Yes.
but us change, if
No.
those existing use and in compliance, then it makes no difference what we do here today.
Right, so the change for campgrounds is in our SR2 zone and we're increasing setbacks from property lines, which is good, and putting a maximum of sites, but that is the SR2 zone, so it might not be applicable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It'll help, not hurt.
yeah,
right,
but,
But if they're existing.
yeah,
It may be existing, but they may not, if they start as 2 and then went to 5,
right.
you know.
yeah, it's,
They may not all be compliant.
yeah, I'm not sure, yeah, it's grown, it's grown quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 years.
That would be after our massive municipal plan review. So it would not have been grandfathered in, if that's the case.
I just get
So
some,
we can just check on it.
just try to get some clarity and,
Okay.
because I know, like I say, environment's aware of it
Mhm.
and coastal action is aware of it.
Now, we're,
Yeah, no, Andre's the next one, like, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I have 2 comments, both relate to development agreements. One, I actually think that campgrounds is one of the uses that we should always permit by development agreement. And this provision allows as a right use, but campgrounds are extremely impactful. Just the collection of sewage and the hardening of sites that you require to put in place campers, I think that everywhere in our municipality, we should be doing it by development agreement because there are good ones and there are bad ones, and this maybe is an example of a bad one. Done properly, they can be not as impactful, or we could specify things to make it less impactful, not only on the environment, but also on the neighbors. So that's my comment on that. I'm not sure that you can do anything about an existing use, as was said, but, you know, this will continue to happen even in areas where it's permitted, and it'll be impactful on their neighbors.
Okay.
Also on section E, the lakefront overlay. So I kind of have some funny feelings about this. I understand the intent here is that if you develop outside of the actual lakefront overlay zone, but your property, you know, your property straddles 2 zones and you're developing on, is that what I'm saying? Seeing here?
No,
Section E.
yeah, so right now, if, let's say your property is zone mixed use and you have a lakefront overlay of 20 meters, if you want to put a deck on your house or you're building a house that's not in that 20 meters, we're still just requiring a development permit so that staff know that development's happening on that property and can kind of keep an eye on it.
Development permit, okay, yeah.
Part of what was happening was if people claimed they were outside of the 20 meters, the development officer had no way to confirm that because there was no permit issue.
Okay, that's fair.
So, yeah.
Okay. Now I was thinking about a situation where you could be many, like half a kilometer
Right.
away, but I guess you wouldn't know.
So if we want, oh, sorry, Derek.
just one question on A. So, line 2, the specifying that the site will not function as a residential dwelling unit. Why would we not want it? It could be a tourist home or a short-term rental, whatever, but why couldn't it function as a residential dwelling unit? Why wouldn't we want it to be able to do that?
a tourism home wouldn't be used as residential if that would just be a residential home rather than being a rental unit.
So you'd have to convert it somehow back to a residential if you want.
I suppose so, yes.
Yeah, I just don't know why you would prohibit it functioning as a residential dwelling unit.
Would you like to touch on that at all?
Can we
That
just bring
might
the
be more
lecture
of a-
back up on the screen? I don't have it right in front of me.
Page 2. Top of page 2.
It's rolled up, it's just very leggy.
Yeah.
Very.
So we're saying that
Yeah,
it will not function as a residential dwelling unit, just in the definition of a tourism home.
right. Yeah, so I think that's just to clarify that, like, for the tourism home use it's a commercial use.
Right.
So it's
Oh, and we're trying to better identify that for the whole purpose of taxation.
permitted and taxation, right? So, you know, a hotel isn't a residential dwelling unit in the same sense that a Airbnb isn't a residential dwelling unit.
But if we had a normal house that just happened to have 5 rooms and they're using it as a tourist, and people say, well, I want to buy it, but I don't have a residence, you're saying we can't?
You would need to get a development permit to change the use. So you're either
One or the other.
So if we're issuing a permit as a tourist home, then it's a tourist home. So that if somebody wants to use that as a residential dwelling unit, then you would
They
get
gotta
a
reply to
development
it.
permit, change of use.
What would they have to comply with to make it to the fact?
Setbacks, the other zone standards in the land use bylaw.
But isn't a residential dwelling unit less of a problem than a tourist home? I mean, why are you putting a restriction on the residential?
We're not, we're putting the restriction on the tourist home. This is in the definition for a tourist home. We can come back with some clarity if you want. We can bring the development officer in to explain exactly what the issue is that she's dealing with. No, I'm just saying because she's the one
Yeah.
that asked for us to.
But we're just changing the definition.
Yeah.
Just some
not the
language in
bylaw
the
itself.
definition, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe when I reread it after this, it may make some sense to me. Right now, it's making no sense to me why we prohibit it's a tourist home. Convert, you're not saying you're prohibiting, you're gonna require development permit to convert it back to residential. You might have no conversion, and they just are gonna live in this as a residence, and you're saying, no.
That's sort of the same as saying I have a storefront and I'd like to live in it. You need to still make that change of use.
And in order to track tourist homes and know where they are in our municipality, when council wants to know the impact of tourist homes on rentals and that kind of thing, we need to know where they are. So there needs to be a permit issued for them. But again, if council wants to separate that out, then we can bring back some more detail on that. And maybe there is a way that we can allow a tourist home to also be a residential dwelling unit at the same time.
I know we want to track tourists.
Yeah.
Also-
Sam.
On that point, a lot of these short-term rentals go back and forth within a year. You know, somebody will rent it for so many months on a short-term rental basis, so it's cost.
Right.
Then they might live there for 2 or 3 months. And I don't think we want to have people having to get permits every time they went from one to the other.
Well, why don't you let us bring that one back then?
Okay, that's a good.
It's been 8 months since this was even envisioned in the first case, so maybe we
I'm
missed
just saying, if
something.
you had a permit for the most intense use, which is the short-term rental, should include the less intense use.
Right, right.
Which would be just a.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we'll
we'll
check
bring that
another-
piece back, and then just on the campgrounds thing,
I'll check into that properly.
yeah,
Well, yeah.
Or,
And that particular one, I think that's really better addressed to our bylaw development folks to take a
Yeah.
look at it. That really doesn't impact,
Okay.
because the amendment to the zone is to the SR2 zone, and that would be the mixed use zone most likely in Crandall Road there. I think it really, it's apples and oranges. It doesn't really have anything to do with an existing campground.
yeah,
But I think that we want to either give direction or make a motion to actually place additional restrictions on campgrounds. Every time a campground shows up in this municipality, it's problems.
but.
And I think they should only be approved by development agreement.
So that would be, we could separate that out.
Well, that's all I'm saying is we'll separate out the section that Derek's speaking of, until you get some clarity, and we'll separate out the campground piece until we get some you take a look at it to see what the options are.
Yep.
And then we can approve all the rest of the amendments, or give notice at least.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Okay, somebody want to give notice for the remainder? Those two separated out.
So,
I think it's notice we have to give, isn't
so moved.
it? Second, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Might I ask a question on environment, please?
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Oh, no, it wasn't related to this.
Oh, okay.
Moving this forward, but referencing Department of Environment is becoming very curious to me because it's come up a few times. So with this particular discussion, so where are we with environment with this particular?
Well, I think, from the knowledge that I have, environment was at the site and because they were concerned about
Mhm.
wastewater.
Mhm.
And he, I guess, produced a receipt that said that he had to pump out. Now, whether it was pumped out once, it's pretty sketchy. The electrical down there is sketchy, and I know that has nothing to do with us, but it's like a pop-up. I call it a pop-up. I mean, it's literally right on the ocean, literally. Where it is down there, but,
Well, we had some issues with this one, possibly putting contaminants into the ocean.
yeah, and when they were, they were taking, Blue Nose Coastal were taking some samples from there. And just the fecal matter in that area, the oak crop there was like crazy. So I think we need to look at it again.
We can send somebody over.
So I have a question still related to environment, because again, I'm trying to figure them out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just missing something.
Well,
So if they, in this case, if they were able to provide paperwork, if they did, and that's fine, it's your,
Yeah.
environment gives them the check, is that how it works?
Well, I guess so.
And all that
I don't
other
know
stuff
much of
doesn't-
this. I don't know much of, I just know that the officer that was investigating
Yeah.
it is no longer here. And he had the history, but there's a new officer, environment
Yeah.
investigator that's in the area now. I don't even know who the new guy is, but this has been probably
Well, we can
years.
check and see if there's an open case file.
Yeah, there might be an open case file on it.
Certainly, so just again, to continue the environment discussion, it's come up at our building code and unsightly premises committee around just discussions, we've had it. I know we have, and it's come up, trying to think of a more recent example than that one and now today, but it's come up and I've actually mentioned it at the table, and that's fine because it would take more than me, but my interest is having somebody come in from environment and tell us what they can do, what they can't do, what they are doing, what they're not doing. Well, they would never tell us what they're not doing. And again, if it's a case of staff or resources, maybe there's something that we can do in terms of advocating and asking that there be some more resources put into that particular department, because I've heard it a few times.
They're aware of it.
But again, check marker, or being aware of it,
Yeah,
which I could live my life like that.
well,
Again, it's on the record that I have an interest, so I'll continue to do that.
No, they don't.
To have them come in. It's not going anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna do two more, that one will hopefully be relatively straightforward, and then we're gonna have a break. Summer council meeting scheduled July and August. Just thought that if possible, we would try to take some portions of it off. Primarily in August.
The only addition, so we presented you with a proposed
Schedule.
schedule. And the only change to that would be the July 6th committee of the whole meeting. We would also be proposing that we add a workshop after that, just so that that's in your calendar as well. It would be a workshop
On the sixth,
Yeah.
on the 6th
for,
village plan review.
very good.
So, like everything, I mean, this is what we're looking for approval on, but of course, the world changes, and if it does, we'll change with it. But,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so somebody,
Even though,
yeah, sure, that's a motion.
motion to approve the proposed schedule for July now.
Second discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Now, we have, two district grants, Coverage Area Business Association. Yeah,
I'll put the question that I can, but I'm make the motion to approve the request.
seconder?
I'll second.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. And the next one is Chester Playhouse.
It's just a little additional piece of information related to this application. Sue Crocker connected with me just this week to let me know that as part of their application for funding for their grand reopening event, they had applied to the province for $10,000, and unfortunately, they were not successful with that application. So they just wanted to pass that information along in case it helps with the decision making here today to approve the district grant.
The district grant, the one I have is for $2,000 grant. At the last meeting, Sharon, you weren't here, I asked to be deferred, because sometimes these grants, because they are community-wide, even though they're in the village, I guess should be shared with others. You and I usually reach an accommodation. Clearly, based on their circumstances, are for more than two at this point. Have they put one in for more than two?
No, they're just hoping to be successful with the 2,000.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm gonna move that we approve it, but I would like to see if any other people would like to share in that and even increase it if necessary, given the fact that they've run into something to do with glitch with their other funds.
I would do half of that with you. I feel my area most, use the playhouse, so I wouldn't have any problem at all splitting that. I don't think we can increase it without them asking for the specific grant. That would be difficult, but I don't mind splitting that request.
Anyone else like to contribute to that?
It's just too early in the game.
And for me, I've pretty much got mine all the water right at this point. And I'm trying to do juggling act with the four.
Just want to give you the opportunity.
I thank you for that.
Just you talk about it being a municipal facility.
Yeah.
So if it is, then tell me out. Anyway,
That's why we're giving them other money.
I understand, but this is I also have the plans on that budget, and I want, this is sort of a priority. So at least we have 50-50 between Sharon and I and anyone else. That, maybe they'll look, maybe they should be applying, Chad, to other counselors for a portion of their district grant directly. Would that be something they could do?
They always can.
Right, Andre?
Would that be something we would recommend?
I don't want to speak for other counselors. I'm not kind of hearing that around the table, but if they wanted to reach out, they certainly could.
So if someone wanted to suggest that they go, they can reach out to Chad if it's all right.
You don't even have the opportunity right now to do that, actually.
Yeah, it would be a wonderful, but as Sharon said, they've already applied for the two, we're really, between the two of us, we'll make sure we get what they've applied for. Thanks, Sharon.
Okay, so we have a mover and a second.
I move it.
I can second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Anybody object to taking a 10-minute break? We'll take that.
No.
Jim,
Carried.
keep retaining you after whenever you're ready, like whenever. Okay, thank you.
Didn't want to touch that, Chad.
What's that?
Didn't want to touch that.
No.
See this? You first have to roll it all the way out, all the way out, and then you come with subsequent